G'day guys, in this very video I'm going to show you guys the magic of compound interest and how you can use it to build wealth for yourself. Before we go any further, let's have a look at what compound interest is. So compound interest or compounding interest is the interest on a loan or deposit calculated based on the initial principal and the accumulated interest from previous periods. Compound interest can be thought of as interest on interest and will make a sum grow at a faster rate than simple interest, which is calculated only on the principal amount. And here is a quote by the great Warren Buffett. He says, "My wealth has come from a combination of living in America, some lucky genes, and compound interest." If you want to use compound interest to your advantage, you better understand this formula. So P is your initial principal, R is your interest rate or your yearly return. N is the amount of times that your interest is compounded per unit T. And then T is your time. Now, when you're considering compounding your money, the most important things is your initial principal, your interest rate, and probably most importantly, time. Those are the three factors that will decide how rapidly your money compounds. Now let's view the magic. So we've got our compound interest calculator here, and what we're going to do is we're going to enter a initial deposit of $1,000. We're going to say that we're going to contribute $100 per week into our investment, and then we're going to assume an average market return of 8%. This is roughly what you can expect a broad index fund within the stock market to provide you as a return. And then we're going to say we do this for 40 years straight. Now, let's have a look at the results. And as you can see, at the end of the 40 years, you're going to have $1.36 million, of which you contributed $208,000, and then the rest is all interest. And as you can see by looking at the curve of the graph, your first sort of 20 years, it's not all that impressive. But as you go out to these later dates, you can really see the power of compound interest at work and the magic it provides. Now you're probably asking, Devin, what am I going to invest in to get this 8% annual interest rate? Well, this is what you could consider. You could consider a Lowcost Australian ETF, such as IOZ or VAS. So IOZ, that tracks the 200 largest Australian companies, or you could consider VAS, which tracks the top 300 Australian companies. Now, within this ETF, you're going to be buying into a lot of Australian banks, Australian mining companies, and these, they're going to pay dividends, and you got to make sure you reinvest that dividend over time to achieve this 8% average growth. Now let's have a look at a different scenario. So we're still going to assume that we deposit $1,000 initially and that we invest $100 a week for 40 years. But instead, this time we're going to assume an annual growth rate of our investments of 15%. Now, most people ain't going to be capable of making this 15%. But if you're dedicated to investing and you want to learn a really sound strategy where you can outperform the market over the long term, well, this 15% growth rate might be something you're able to achieve. Now let's see what this results in. So if you have a look at the graph here, just like the other graph, it starts off quite slow and underwhelming. But as we come out to these later years, the compounding just turns insane. Like, look at year 40 here. You've again invested $208,000, but look at your total return. It's $9.5 million. And even once you get out this late, look at the difference between year 39 and year 40. We're talking over $1 million difference in compounding. But what if you're maybe not so young? Let's change this to 30 years. And if we look, you still end up with 2.3 million. And what if you're like, okay, well, maybe I can chuck in a bit more. So let's say you start with $10,000 and let's up this to $250 a week. Well, look where you end up. The power of compounding takes you over $6 million. Now, this is how Warren Buffett got wealthy, and this is how many people get wealthy. They invest their money, they take advantage of compound interest, and they reap the rewards. Now, let's say you're like, damn, I don't want to wait around 30 years for my 6 million. I want it now. Well, let's play around with these numbers and see if we can work something out. So let's say you're in your early 20s and you're like, wow, wouldn't it be great to try to retire sort of in my 30s? So let's say you're 20 and we're going to change this compounding time frame to 15 years. And we're going to say, well, we're going to work hard in our teens, let's say, and we're going to say that you've managed to save $50,000. And, you know, you've worked really hard and you've managed to find some passive income, and maybe you've got a high paying job and you're like, wow, I've got a bunch of money left over. So let's invest $500 a week. So that ends up $2,000 a month, about 24 grand a year. And let's say, well, you know, I'm going to be a beast of an investor and I'm going to achieve 20% over this period. Well, as you can see, you would have $2.6 million at the end of that 15 years. So if you start this when you're 20, this could be you when you're 35. Now that would be a really, really handsome number to potentially, you know, retire on, or maybe you could like take that money, start your dream business. Maybe you just want to chill. I don't know, up to you. Maybe you like what you're doing. You just want to keep going at it and let that compounding engine grow. Now let's, just for the fun of it, why not? Let's change this back to 40 years and see where it gets us. And you'll see we get to $264 million. And this is how Warren Buffett did it right here. Except he did it for even longer. Let's just change it to 50. Why not? See, now we're at 1.6 billion. So the reason why I made this video was to really show you guys the power of compound interest and how important investing early is in this compounding journey. The runway of time is probably the most important factor, but also the interest rate or the percent returns you can get per year on your investments is also extremely important. Now, if you want to know and find out about a strategy where you can try to aim at 15% or even 20% or higher returns, make sure you subscribe to this channel, give this video a like, comment if you have any questions. But yes, thank you for listening and see you in the next video.